snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys, so I am here today to do a book review, and the book that I'm going to be reviewing is the first one in the Hollow Gods series, which is Smiler's Fair, and this is by Rebecca Levene. And I was actually sent this by Hodescape, who is the publisher, for free, but of course that does not affect my opinion, and I will be telling you guys exactly what I thought, good or bad. Luckily, even though I'd never heard of Rebecca Levene, even though I'd never heard of Smiler's Fair, I loved this book. I thought it was really, really excellent, and I'm so happy that they sent it to me, so thank you very, very much, Hodescape. I really, really enjoyed this. I thought it was excellent, and let's get into why. This story only came out very recently, at the beginning of February, I believe, and it's actually been compared a lot to The Night Circus, which is another book that I really, really loved. But I would not say it's massively similar to The Night Circus. I would say there is a travelling band and circus in this called Smiler's Fair, but that is kind of where the similarities end. Smiler's Fair does have a bit of everything, which is very similar to The Night Circus, where there's a lot of everything you could ever imagine. But Smiler's Fair is a lot grittier, it's a lot rougher, it's a lot more about down-to-earth violence, there's fights, there's brothels, there's all sorts of things that The Night Circus really does not even touch on. But this one is definitely a far, far grittier version of that. So in a way, yes, it's similar to The Night Circus, it does have a travelling fair, but other than that, not very similar. I would actually compare this more to George R.R. Martin and kind of the grittiness and the down-to-earth feeling that he gives in his books, but it's also very original and unique in its own way. So just because I compare it to those two books, it doesn't mean that it's similar to them in a massive way. It's definitely got its own unique story, its own characters, and I loved it, which I was not expecting to. I thought it was going to be a kind of really short book that wasn't amazing, but it definitely wasn't that, and it really surprised me, so I really am happy that I gave this a chance and read it very, very soon after it was released. Some of the characters that we focus on, the first one is called Nethme, the daughter of an Ashane lord. The Ashane is one of the cultures within this society, and she is being sent away to the tribes, who are another culture, in order to kind of form an alliance between her uncle, who is Ashane, and the tribe leader, who is obviously from the tribes, which is the complete opposite of what her father, when he was alive, was working for. He always hated the tribes and warred against them. Since her father has died, she is now being sent away as a kind of apology, and here you go, have my niece situation. So she and her uncle really don't get along. She's not happy about the prospect of being sent away for marriage to a tribe that her father never wanted them to be allied with. Generally, she's not in a great position because she can't really do much about it. She doesn't have any money of her own, and she can't escape the fact that she's got to go to these tribes and live there. Nethme was definitely a character who took a while for me to get into. I was intrigued in her story straight away. I definitely felt like it was a little bit kind of cliche, but I was interested in how she was going to react to it, and definitely as it moved on I felt like she got more interesting and more engaging, and by the end of the story I was really intrigued as to how she was going to cope with things and what her story was going to develop into. So I really, really loved her by the end of this. I liked seeing the way that she was forced to make new decisions, and she was forced to kind of consider doing things that she never would have considered before because of the situation she found herself in. I liked that she had to conquer her fears and she had to take on new challenges, and she just became a much stronger character over the course of this book, which is why I ended up really enjoying her as she got further through the story. Next we have Eric. Eric is a Molly, or a male whore. He is one of my favourite characters by far. I think he is my favourite character by far, and I just enjoyed his personality. He has a very sweet outlook on life, and he's a very wonderful character who I instantly felt connected with. I instantly loved his personality. He was one who I had no issue with liking straight away, and I really enjoyed seeing. He actually works as part of Smiler's Fair. He initially wasn't part of Smiler's Fair. He wasn't born there or anything like that. He came from far away and found himself in Smiler's Fair, which was a good opportunity, but the only place he could get work was in the brothel, which is why he is working there. He doesn't mind it, he enjoys what he does, but he doesn't really see a long-term future there, especially since there are younger boys always coming into the brothel and kind of taking his clients away because they're younger and fresher and prettier. And one day he meets someone who he thinks he could spend the rest of his life with, and his journey changes from then on because he decides he's going to leave Smiler's Fair. I loved his storyline. I loved his personality. I thought he was a great, great character, and I thought he developed really well. but his storyline was just as engaging and I loved it. I felt like his storyline was one of the more exotic storylines. The less traditional storylines are more unique, and I really enjoyed seeing what happened to him, seeing how he was kind of forced into some really bad situations as well, and he didn't know what he was doing, but he faced them and he was brave and he did the best he could. And I loved seeing that so much. I thought he was a really excellent character. I think his story is definitely the best one so far, and I cannot wait to see how it continues for sure. He was one of the sweetest and most entertaining characters in the book. I instantly connected with him and sympathised with his plight. He was certainly put in some really bad situations. I think his personality and his resolve were constantly tested, and he had to learn a lot about the reality of the world and the real brutal way of people in the world, and people forcing you to do things you don't want to do and be in situations you don't want to be in. I definitely feel like his storyline in book number 2 is going to be amazing, so I cannot wait for book number 2, which is I'm sure going to be ages because this one only just came out, but I really cannot wait to see what happens with him. Next we have Daihyo, I'm not sure how you say that, who is a member of the Dai tribe, and the Dai tribe is a different tribe to the one that Nethmi has been sent to, but it is also a tribe. There are a lot of tribes in this world. He is an older character and he's actually a very resourceful character. He was a member of the Dai tribe, but the Chun, who is another tribe, actually came along and slaughtered everyone in his tribe when he was very young. He was about 7. And so he has since then sworn revenge on the Chun. He wants to take away the land from them. He doesn't like them. He hates them, in fact. He wants revenge for everyone in his tribe being killed. And he's one of the very few people who is actually a member of the Dai tribe and continues to live and survive. I really loved his plight and his revenge story. It was definitely engaging and instantly made you want to join his cause. But he was a rather bitter character. He's a drunk at the beginning of this and he has to sort his life out, which is something that's very difficult if you're a drunk, obviously. He was just very engaging as a character, but his storyline took so many ups and downs and we never really knew whether he was going to succeed or fail or what he was going to do, because he's not a very organised character. He doesn't really plan properly. He's very short-sighted with his planning and is quite prone to rages and drunken moments and episodes, so he's quite an interesting character, and the fact that he was a little bit older than the other characters was definitely a new perspective as well, so I liked seeing the change from different ages. That was really nice. He really has to come to some harsh realizations over the book about his life and what he's going to have to do to take control of it and change it if he wants to get revenge. He also meets some of the very interesting characters, and he's quite a good one for tying off the characters. He is actually one of the few characters who meets most of the others, whereas most of the other characters don't all come across one another. I really liked his intentions as a character and he steadily grew on me, and by the end I really liked his personality. He was definitely one who I felt like grew over the course of the book as well as Nethmi, and really enjoyed his story as a whole. I also liked the way that his story was very down to earth and realistic, like how it would be for a real life situation. I definitely felt like this whole book was very gritty and down to earth. Next we have Krish, who is a young goat herd who lives away from most of the Ashan society, even though he is Ashan, and he lives up in this tiny little village with his mother and father. He and his father have a pretty bad relationship because his father actually is kind of a drunk and he beats his mother, and Krish really doesn't like that. He doesn't like the fact that his mother can't resist his father and they won't move away and leave him. He knows that it's all a very bad situation, but she only stays with his father because of him and they need a good life. Krish really doesn't know what to do about it. One day he decides he's going to change things. He's going to do something about it, and of course this leads to a lot more trouble than he ever anticipated, and he gets into some really sticky situations. I really liked Krish as a character from the beginning because he is intelligent, he's very good at working things out, and he just was a really sweet character as well. And although that changed and he had to harden as a character over the course of the book, I really enjoyed his personality and I really enjoyed his intentions as well. I thought like he was a very pure character and he had no ill will towards anyone, but he only did the things he did because he was kind of forced to, because of other people doing things that forced him to take that action. I definitely want to know what he's going to bring in book number 2 because his storyline is really interesting and gets more so as it goes along, and I'm sure that he's going to be a really entertaining and vital character as it continues. Finally, we are also following Marvin, who lives within Smiler's Bear and is part of it, and he is not really loved by the other people who live there. They kind of know he has a dark, festering secret, which he does, and it's a very dark secret. There are some really brutal things that happen in this book. It's not by any means a light read, it's definitely not a fun read. It's gritty, it's realistic, it's dark, it's bloody. There's a lot of horrible scenes, and he's certainly part of some of them. He has a really deadly dark addiction to something quite grisly. Whilst the others in the fair know about it, they kind of leave him to it. He kind of feels like an outcast within Smiler's Fair, which he doesn't like and he doesn't enjoy, but he can't resist the allure of this grisly secret. I think his character was definitely the most ruthless and scary and terrifying in the book, and there were some moments where I really feared him and I didn't like him as a character, but equally we kind of see inside his head and we see his thoughts, so you can kind of understand him, and that's scary to understand someone that's that horrible and terrifying. So it was a really great character to have in the mix as well, and I thought he was just really terrifying, scary, and the things he did were so dark and bloody. He's a really, really well-crafted character. He's very conflicted, and he's very lonely, full of a kind of very cold sense of reality. His sections were definitely filled with the most atrocities in the book, and yeah, I enjoyed it though. Even though it was terrifying and scary and brutal and bloody, I enjoyed it. One thing I do want to mention in regards to this book is the world building that we have going on. We have a lot of different scenery that we pass through. We've got a desert, we've got hill tribes, we've got everyday citizens. We've also got the base of Smiler's Fair, which is a kind of ragtag collection of carts and tents and various sort of pop-up shops. We see ice-ridden land, we see like plains and cliffs. So there's a lot of different places that we see and go to over the course of this story, which I love. I also love the fact that within this book there's no hesitation about swearing. In a lot of books we don't see the F word very much because people don't really like to include it, even though they'll include other words. This book, we see all this colourful language, lots of colourful language, that is for sure, but I loved it because it brought it to life. It made it feel completely convincing, very realistic, and it was certainly gritty and dark, and it required that strong language in places because the sort of world that this is, you wouldn't want to be there and you would definitely be swearing constantly. So I love the fact that there was no hesitation over using whatever they felt was necessary to get the point across, and that was something I really enjoyed. There are also topics such as rape and murder, death, and all of this is given to the reader in a very direct and gritty way. So if any of those things are like scary for you or you don't like the idea of reading about them, definitely don't read this book. But if they interest you, or if there's something that you're okay with and you're interested in this book, definitely pick it up. I also loved the religion within this book. There were various different types of gods, hence the name of the series, the Hollow Gods, and different tribes and different people worship different things. So we have the Ashane culture, which worships a prow god. Essentially they find a rock and then they will have a dream about this rock, which will be their god coming to them, and then they will carve that god into the rock and they will take it with them wherever they go and pray to it at night, and it will hopefully bring them luck and blessings and so on. We also have the sun and the moon god, who are not worshipped by anyone anymore. They're kind of the forgotten gods. The sun god is kind of everyday. Everyone worships the sun because it brings them crops and things, but the moon god is definitely a forgotten god. People don't think he exists anymore. They think he's died out. And it's definitely a kind of central point to the story of whether or not the moon god is a thing. Is it a reality or is it just a phantasm? There's also the gods of the die, the hunter, and we have many, many more gods that we see over the course of the story, and I'm sure it's going to be developed even more over the course of the series. And I loved seeing religion within books when it's awesome and integrated really well into the story, and this book definitely does that, so certainly I would recommend that. The pacing and the descriptions were really, really great too. I felt like everything in this book was just very on point with what I would want it to be, and it was certainly very surprising for me how excellently done this was. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing the rest of the series. I really want to know what's going to happen with our main characters. I really loved it all. It's definitely left on massive cliffhangers for everyone. I want to know what's going to happen like now. Everything interwove really well. Smiler's Fair was kind of a connection point for most of the characters. All of them had in some way had some sort of association with Smilers, which was really great to see. And generally I just thought this was a massive, wonderful surprise. So I would highly recommend this. I gave this a 4.5 star rating. I thought it was excellently done. The world building, the characters, everything was really, really good. and I will definitely be picking up the next one whenever that comes out. So thank you once again, Hot Escape, for sending this to me, and definitely let me know your thoughts if you've read this or if you want to read this down in the comments below, because I would love to chat to you guys about it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon in another video. Bye! Me and you gonna have a little